extreme emotional triggers and mediations. That is our topic for today, part of the series Mediation Tips by Fran Brochstein. Welcome to the Lawyers and Mediators International Show and Podcast by InstantMediations.com, where we discuss law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. Catch regular episodes on YouTube and anywhere you get your podcasts. Just remember, nothing in these episodes constitutes legal advice, so be sure to talk to a lawyer as cases are fact dependent. Hi everyone, this is Mac Pierre-Louis, attorney, mediator, arbitrator, working throughout Florida and Texas.
And Natalia Łowska-Czajka, advocate, mediator, and arbitrator from Warsaw, Poland, and from Florida as well.
Fran Brochstein, attorney and mediator in Texas.
And I'm Tye Bourdony, director of mediation at CPLS, a primary mediation trainer and a full-time mediator in Florida as well.
Yes, so we have an awesome show today because we got two mediators who are with us, who have been contributing for the last couple of years on Lawyers Mediators International. And the topic for today is dealing with emotions, right? We're all emotional creatures, but when we get to the mediation table, especially when we're doing a family mediation, sometimes the emotions can get the better of us. And sometimes the emotions can go kind of extreme to where it could hurt the mediation process. And so if you are a mediator and you're watching this, of course, this is a good episode to kind of get some tips from on how to help calm the parties. And if you are a party, especially if you're a party thinking that the other side's a little, on the emotional side, then this might be a good episode to watch to help you think this out and consider ways to help make sure the mediation is going to be successful. So we wanted to get the thoughts from these veteran mediators and mediator trainers on how do we handle extreme emotional triggers in mediation. Fran, Tye, what do you say?
Well, that's one thing I enjoy about mediation is I tend to let each side have at least 30 minutes to vent. I have found that they need to get it out and tell somebody before we can even discuss negotiation at all. And it doesn't hurt my feelings at all if people cuss and scream and holler. I do, ask, and especially in Texas, they not bring a gun to mediation. And Zoom has actually been very helpful because the people are in their home environment. They feel safe. And it's my job as a trained professional to stay out of their way and to hold the safety spot so they feel that they can vent and get it out. And after venting is when negotiations begin. Tye, what do you think?
I love it. I couldn't have said it better. Because when we do that, when we listen, then one, they feel heard. And if they feel heard, then they start to trust us because they all on their own, they're thinking, Fran understands what I'm saying. Fran gets me. Fran agrees with me. Fran's not saying anything. Fran is just being quiet and she's being very empathetic and she's listening. And but it starts to build rapport between mediator and the party. And then somewhere along there, they start to trust us, right? And it's helping us because there's another reason we're letting them talk. It's not just because they have to vent, although that's huge, but we're also hearing everything they're saying and we're picking up our cues. We're seeing where to go. We're hearing more about what's going on. And again, they're seeing us as someone that they can trust. And if they trust us, they trust the process. If they trust the process, they'll hear our message. That was really well said. And no guns. Yes, I agree.
And having said that, I think that what we need to remember is that we need to allow people to have their emotional space. These mediations are legitimate. And people might have them as long as they don't hurt other parties and as they don't get physical or aggressive, of course. However, and again, Zoom is so helpful then. However, you are you have the right as a party to have your own emotions. Nobody can tell you just calm down. That's not a place for that. Mediation is not about it. You are allowed to have your emotions. You are allowed to shed tears if this is how you feel. You are allowed to feel joy, but you're allowed to feel sad because of the things that are being said, because of the things that you feel that you when you go through. Usually, all of us are family mediators. When we go through those difficult moments, we know it's natural and we are able to recognize your emotions. And I hope we are going to also touch on someone who is making a very good point on that, which is Doug Knoll in his De-Escalate, How to Calm Down an Angry Person in Less Than 90 Seconds. In his book, Doug Knoll actually teaches techniques how to get through those difficult emotions, to get to the point. And he uses the form and the two key phrases. And one is emotional validation. And this is what makes us feel heard, makes us feel recognized, make us feel acknowledged. And the other thing that he's saying is also, instead of active listening, he says empathic listening. So come back to the emotion of empathy, co-feeling this emotion. And good mediator makes a party feel that they are understood on the level of their emotions.
So before we connect back to Ty and Fran to discuss some examples of things they've seen over the years, I wanted to piggyback on what Natalia was just sharing about Doug Doe. I'm sharing my screen. If you're listening to this on the podcast, so check out the video version on YouTube. And I'm sharing my screen of the lawyersmediators.org website, of course. And when you go over to Dr. Manuso's page, Barbara Manuso, she was the uh, co contributor who had invited Doug Knoll to do a talk on de-escalation. And so that that episode was called De-Escalate, How to Calm an Angry Person in 90 Seconds or Less. And the reason he was on the podcast was to speak a little bit more about emotions and how people can be triggered easily and how people can be calmed down. And a lot of mediators need these skills to help people go through the process and reach resolution without the whole thing blowing up. And so this is definitely a good read, not just for professionals like mediators and lawyers, but judges as well, but also for parties, pro se parties, okay, parties who are part of a mediation and who need to know how to deal with strong emotions like anger. Okay, but let me stop sharing my screen. But Ty and Fran, please, can you give us some, I guess, examples of things maybe you've seen over the years that where mediation went off the rails because somebody's emotions were out of control, and then maybe what you did to help bring things back and make and help the people reach resolution.
Well, sometimes I let the people go for a few minutes, and if it seems to be escalating, sometimes I'll suggest we either take a brief break or we go into separate rooms. And we can always come back together. But some people, I have had people, we go into separate rooms, just burst into tears and cry for 5 minutes. And as a mediator, also, I'm an attorney, I'm on my third marriage, I'm a grandparent. I co-grandparent with my ex-husband. So I understand that this is extremely difficult. And I always point that out to the parents or the parties, that I understand that this is death of their relationship. And it is a very sad time. And so I try to go as slow as they need me to go. I don't try to rush them. I'd rather go 6 or 8 hours than try to rush them through in 4 hours.
Agreed.
Because again, these decisions they're making are going to impact their life for maybe years to come. So, Ty, what do you think about that?
I'm with you. I think the empathy that we bring to mediation sometimes is half the battle, depending on what's going on. What's interesting is that they can go right, they'll get themselves, they will work themselves back up to the emotional state that they were in when they were arguing and they're fighting, and they haven't left there. They come to mediation with these blinders on, and it's the mediator who has to help reframe their what we're getting from the other side. We have to reality check them, but before we can do that, we do have to de-escalate them if they get there, and or we have to get them to the place where they can hear that other side. And it's different, and it's case by case. It really depends on what's going on. And I like to I like to talk about the mediator is like water, the way when Bruce Lee says be like water, because every case is so different, and the obstacle comes, and do we go over it, do we go on the side, how do we because we have to deal with them the way they need to be dealt with, and sometimes they need a firmer hand, sometimes they need a real emotional hand, and we need to also be neutrally partial, like in with each side, with each of them. We have to be all in for them, and we need to get them to the place where they feel like they're being heard, and then we can move, before we can move on, just like Fran said. And it's case by case, isn't it? And the funny thing is that we're figuring it out as we go, and we're relying on our instincts, because we've done this so many times and we've seen it so many times, to tell us instinctually, where do I go? And how am I going to handle this one here? Am I going to listen? Am I going to say something? So it's really interesting. But we have to deal with those emotions first, one way or another.
And the mediation setup, if you're a party, a mediating party, you need to know that the mediation setup is already prepared for that. On a good mediator's table, you'll find tissues. So if you shed tears, you'll have a chance to, there will also be a chance for you to ask for a break if you want to do something about your makeup, if you want to be sure that it's correct and stays where it should be. And on the other hand, if you're angry or hungry, actually, there will be something for you to grab so that your sugar level goes up. So, and again, it is your right as a mediating party to request a break if you don't feel comfortable this very moment with the emotions you feel, or if you feel intimidated. And you also have the right to stand up, just to stretch your legs or do a few steps and have a deep breath. And a good mediator will know where there is a moment to make you stand up and have this deep breath.
So
Great.
whenever we're dealing with anger, sometimes the anger comes from the mediator. I've had a situation where the mediator got super angry at a party. It wasn't me. I was the attorney for a particular party. And because things were not going a certain way, or maybe it was just mediator style, I don't know. The mediator got up and slammed the door as they left the room so hard. I remember my client looking at me like, can they do that? Look, if a mediator is losing their cool to that degree, then that's probably going to create some doubt in the client's mind, on the party's mind, on whether or not that mediator can be neutral, trusted, empathetic, and all of that. So certainly when we talk about emotions and passion, it seems nobody's immune. Okay, they can even impact on the mediator. But the one person who none of this applies to is going to be the judge. This is one reason we want people to mediate, so that they can try to resolve the issues themselves and then deal with these emotional situations in the mediation. Because if you have to go to the court and have a third party neutral, like a judge, make a decision, well, then you don't get to just say whatever you want. You say yes and no. You only answer what's asked. And that's how you do it. Your emotions are gonna be controlled by somebody else. Okay, there's a police officer there, there's a bailiff there that's going to control your reactions. You know, so what do you guys think about that? That the emotions don't just end with the parties, but also the other parties who are participating, even the lawyer who's pounding the fist on the table. How do you guys deal with that, the others?
Well, Mac, I agree with you. The judge is there to make the decision, and generally, I find that no one is ever happy in front of a judge. Judge follows the laws. He really doesn't care about your feelings. Where at mediation, I always honor the person and their feelings, even if I think their feelings may not be reasonable. It's their feelings, it's
That's right.
theirs. And so I have to go with them where they go. And I have on occasion, I haven't done it in a long time, I had a lady pounding, quoting the Bible to me, and she stood up
Mm.
and was pounding on the table. So I stood up and I started quoting the Bible, and she sat down and she said, "You are a good person. You know your Bible." And I said, "Yes,
Hmm.
ma'am, I do." And because of that, we were able to move forward. And I usually let people vent. But when the third time comes around hearing the same story, I'm like, enough is enough.
Hmm.
I can't fix the past. I'm here to try to make the future better. But the past is in the past. And I don't have a magic fairy dust or a magic wand to heal all of your wounds. And many people coming to mediation are wounded.
Oh
And a
yeah.
good mediator knows that. And we're all also human.
Mm.
And if I hear about child abuse or potential child abuse, I will tell you, I get upset because I've heard some horrible stories about children being physically injured, having bones broken. And I'm sorry, I cannot be 100% impartial when I hear about terrible child abuse.
Yeah. You know, I can remember. So I'm a child of domestic violence myself. I'm going to get emotional, and I was in a mediation, and the one of the parties was a first responder. My dad was a first responder. He's passed, so I'm okay talking about him. And anyway, the situation was eerily similar, and so now I think it's important for a mediator. This is not my mediation. This is not my story. It's their story. It's not about me. It's about them. However, um, there were concerns about the children and how this would affect them. And I drew upon my own experience to individually, we were in caucus at this point, but to let them know, listen, this is what happened to me, and I was okay. And so in that one instance, the way to de-escalate was to open myself up and to let them see it's gonna be okay, and to use that example. Now, that I do not do that often at all, but because I do not believe that the emotional one should be the mediator. On the contrary, we have to be like a duck. You know, water ducks don't get wet; the water just beads right off of them. Because Fran's right. Boy, people will curse like the sweetest people are at their worst at mediation, and they will curse like sailors, and they will get so worked up, and we have to bring them back. We have to de-escalate them, but they have to go through it, and we have to kind of bring them back down. And how we do that is the interesting part. But it should never be about us. But the emotions are real, and even with the attorneys, but they're good. It's the parties, right? And so, they're in monkey brain when they're emotional, and we have to get them out of that by listening, by letting them see us listen, and if you listen to Doug Noll, you have to express what that emotion is in a you statement. You're hurt because X, Y, and Z. And then hopefully yeah. And then you can kind of start to move them forward and reframe it. But it is tough dealing with emotion, even for the mediator sometimes. But regardless, Fran is right. We still have to be, when she was saying, so I pounded my chest, she was being neutrally partial. She was being what she needed her to be, what that party needed her to be in that moment. And then they calmed down because she recognized that Fran recognized what she was going through and what she was saying. And it's so helpful to get them moving. But how we do it, I would say Fran didn't think, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go like this. She reacted based on her instincts. And that's what's helpful when you have a very, very experienced mediator.
And having said that, and thank you for it, uh, there is a place for emotions in mediation. However, those emotions may serve a very, very good purpose. Once we vent off those emotions, we are able to create better communication between the parties. Sometimes one of the very good effects of the mediation is that the parties hear each other again anew. And sometimes, even if you don't get a mediation settlement, you at least have this feeling, you as a mediating party, I mean, that you got heard. That brings such a relief. Sometimes it just brings peace in you with emotions you felt, with the environment you live in. Sometimes it is important that you finally had a forum where you could express your feelings to your, let's say, ex-partner, to the father of your children, to the mother of your children. You could tell them openly in a safe environment how you feel about what's happening. And this creates a new communication level when you are free from those emotions because they were released. And then you can start anew trying to communicate, to hear what you say. And again, mediator is very helpful in that because with their skills, with their experience, they can help you build up some sort of agreement for the future again. And usually, and this is our experience, people who come to mediation in family cases, they are bound with each other for their entire lives. They need to be able to communicate because even if the children grow up, like Fran said, you are able to co-grandparent. And this is just amazing. Sometimes you will be staying there with this person you now hate for the next 50 years. So it is in your best interest and in the best interest of the children you have that you are able to communicate. Come to mediation, vent off, and do something positive and creative.
Yes. So, a couple of things before we close. If you are a party in the mediation and you're going to be, uh, ch- I guess, helping choose who the mediator is going to be, this is why it's very important that you help choose a mediator who actually knows how to deal with these strong emotions. If you know your child's parent, the other parent, or you know your partner, or you know your spouse, you know how they are, and you know how unless somebody can help maintain decorum and the proper process, things are going to blow up. Then this is very important that you help choose a mediator who is going to be able to do these tricks of the trade, like help de-escalate, help create empathy with a person, help the person feel validated, so that we can flow the energy the right way. So if you do need to connect with a mediator, I'm sharing my screen. Again, check out Instant Mediations, and that's where the mediator directory exists, where a whole lot of these mediators, we don't vouch for everybody, but a whole lot of mediators are trained in such a thing. And so you can always find somebody there who you might want to contact. And again, offer the other side a few names and let them help pick somebody who might be able to help address the emotional triggers. All right, guys. With that, Fran, Ty, anybody want to make any last points?
Let's let Fran have the last word.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you. Well, the bottom line is we are humans. We have feelings. They're legitimate. And it's okay at mediation to vent. But the goal of a good mediation is to resolve issues and not just come and scream at each other for 4 hours.
Exactly. Or 8.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We will
Well
connect.
said.
We will connect again later. Thank you so much, Fran and Ty, for joining me and Natalia as
Great job.
usual and giving out this great information. All right. Until next time.
Bye bye.